Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Frida Bazel, and here I explore various topics related to New York City, Judaism, and very oftentimes Hasidic Judaism, which is a world that is fascinating and ever-changing. Today, I'm delighted to talk to Shmilly Feldman, a personal trainer in the community, about how workout culture is slowly trickling into this world. Hello, Shmilly. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
My pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
So thank you for taking time off from work to talk to me. Let's start by a little bit about you. When did you get into physical, like into lifting, which you do, and other like physical training?
So I got into it when I was in Shirktana, which was probably I'd say like in 10th grade. I had a friend that I don't remember the exact reason, but his doctor told him that he has to start going to the gym. And I started going with him every day, like not every day. We went to like the Refuah Health Center in Muncie. They have like a small gym in the basement.
Is it gender segregated?
Yes. So every second day is like it's either men or women. So I believe we went every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night. We went there, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I was always like, since I remember myself, I was always fascinated with the concept of strength and athletics. I mean, even though I didn't really know what it was, but I was always like, I would like just crawl on trees. I was always like very physically active. So I just naturally liked the idea of going to the gym. And at first I had no idea what I was doing. Then I like started like searching for like, I started doing like 30-day challenges off of, like I just downloaded Google, like sheets off of Google of like 30-day challenges. And I started following like YouTube fitness influencers. Yeah, at some point eventually I did certifications and
What did you wear in the beginning when you went to the gym?
what I wore all day: black pants, white shirt, the Volnitzitzes.
The volunteers? Did you throw it back like a scarf? You know what? My first experience at a gym was I went to London when I was like 20, newly married or whatever. And we stayed in a hotel that had a gym. I was so excited, it was like, oh, this is like an activity. I went to the gym with whatever I was wearing, which was regular patent leather shoes. And I'm walking on the treadmill. I'm feeling so excited. And someone comes up to me and says, excuse me, you can't be here without trainers. And I didn't even know what those are. And I got kicked out because I wasn't dressed properly.
So they had like a dress code in the gym?
I guess so. You couldn't be on the treadmill with like your patent leather shoes.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That would probably wear the belt.
Oh yeah, it can destroy the belt. Oh, I see. I hear what you're saying. That makes sense. So how did you figure out what to wear eventually? Because I'm assuming nowadays you're not wearing the Volnitzitzes, which is the fringes garment.
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't remember the exact, like, the way things went. It really wasn't purposeful. It was just me having fun with things, at least in the beginning. And I guess I was like, oh, this isn't comfortable, so I'm going to get some sweatpants or a pair of sneakers. Honestly, don't remember, like, the exact way of things, like, how I act, like, at least in the beginning. But, yeah, eventually, I think it, like, took probably a month or two since like till I actually started like looking into what I was actually doing and like trying to figure out like how to actually be purposeful with what I was doing. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Something that interests me is the concept of the Jew as a skinny, like studious Talmud study, what?
Frail, hunched over guy.
Exactly. Versus the strong Jew.
Well,
Did you have a concept in your life as a Satmar Hasidic kid of a strong, muscular, like where does strength for you come in your childhood? When was it seen as a virtue?
honestly, I don't know. I didn't even look at it from like a human perspective. Like I was always fascinated with the concept of like strength and like animals for some reason. Now that I think about it, I don't think like I ever consciously thought about the concept of strength or muscularity when it comes to like to humanity. Yeah, I don't think I ever thought about that.
Did you have stories like in Haide that would
So obviously I have like the traditional stories like Samson, Shimshon HaGibber,
Shimshon HaGibber?
or even David HaMelech, like a bunch of these stories of like ancient, like it's basically all over the place. Yankov Avinu with the pinky finger on the stone. I mean,
Right.
stories. Yeah, and I always found those cool. But I don't think I like indulged too much in. I like the idea of it, but it's like not that I was like fascinated over it. Like I was thinking about it all the time. But yeah, I guess it is in there where you like can find fascination in like physical strength and like things that they taught us.
Did you get pushback once you started to get into getting stronger, building muscle? Did you get pushback from people around you?
So not very, I got a little bit of pushback, not crazy pushback actually. My mother really encouraged it. I don't remember, but I know she started working out at some point too. I think it was a little bit before that actually. I got a little bit, not like real serious pushback, but like from other family members. They weren't really hating on it. They were just like making fun of it a little bit until it became something serious. And like, that took a while till I could stop. Like once I actually started making money off of it, is when like I stopped getting any pushback and actually encouragement for it.
Once it became a parnusa and like a business or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you get into becoming a personal trainer? What made you decide to do that?
I guess at the point where I was like, oh, there's like a whole world of like a whole world of knowledge of how to actually like do this and how to progress in it. I was always actually interested in like just information. I loved to read a lot when I was a child, when I was younger. So the second I'm like, oh, there's a whole knowledge base in this field. Let me get as much knowledge in it as possible. And like, I didn't even think about doing it like for a living. I just wanted like to have the information for myself. So at first I started with like the Google Sheets, with like sheets of download off of Google. And then I started with like YouTube influencers that I started following and like watching their videos. And at some point I came across, I believe it's called Body Design University, something like it, which is like a small a course. It's like a pre-certification for either, I think it's called NASM, which is National Academy of Sports Medicine, or ACE, which is through personal training certificates. And I started studying that, and from there on, I did like a few different certifications, and yeah, that's about it.
You became a personal trainer, and your clients are all Hasidic men?
For the most part. So at this point, I do have like a few trainers that work for me. Part-time, and I have like female clients as well. For the most part, they're like, well, either way, it's like the Hasidic, like the very Amish Hasidic community.
Would you train female clients?
No.
So
in the beginning, I've actually tried doing like couple training, but it usually ends up being very uncomfortable either for me or for them. So
why?
I actually have this guy. He's a medical student. I think he lives in Westchester. I go to a gym in Westchester once in a while, and I meet him. I used to meet him there a lot, and he like does. I use him specifically for like couple training. People like couples that want to train together, and I just bring him down, and he trains them.
Why is it uncomfortable to train couples?
Well, mainly it is probably because like trying to start explaining like how to like have the correct form when doing a squat or anything like it's not specifically a squat, but it usually starts becoming uncomfortable when you like have to like go into detail. You have to like your hip positioning is not right and you have to bend this way and that way. And the way that our culture works, it tends to be very segregated. And when you have to start being invasive, and relatively invasive, it could become very uncomfortable.
So the guy who does it for you from Westchester is not Hasidic, and that's why he can be
Jewish.
He's not Jewish at all. So he can adjust the woman who needs to be taught how to squat properly.
Yeah, and she wouldn't feel too comfortable since it's not a Heimsche guy.
Got it. So because you're a Heimsche guy, you feel like it would feel more invasive than when it's a non-Jew from Westchester.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what happens when a couple trains together, like a Hasidic couple that doesn't have any prior experience in training? Is this like a joint decision that they're going to spend quality time together training?
I've honestly never asked. Like, I don't usually ask what the reason. Like, it usually ends up being something like where a doctor told them they need to work out. I mean, the time together is a whole separate thing. It might be a thing, but and like from the exercise perspective, it comes down usually to necessity rather than trying to improve on life quality or anything like that.
Actually, on that note, like your general Hasidic clients, it's very interesting to me because I didn't grow up with the concept of phys ed. We didn't either have gym in our schools, and the concept of like even running in the street for a workout didn't exist. I think it still doesn't exist, right?
Oh, you can see it here and there nowadays, but it's definitely not as common as you'd see out there.
Nowadays, though, I think a lot of people are becoming very aware of workout culture, right?
Right, but way more than it used to be, for sure.
So what's happening there? What is making people aware of it?
I think it's like a bunch of other things. It's like somehow like people are just becoming like way more open to concepts that have been very foreign or like even taboo to us. Emotional health, I'd say, and like a bunch of things like that. And I think it's just one of them. It's like people are just becoming more aware of the concept of like physical health, especially how it can relate to like religious Judaism, probably. Yeah, it's just starting to become a part of the culture.
What do you mean how it can relate to religious Judaism? What do you have in mind when you say that?
So I used to, when I was in Yeshiva in Monroe, which is 12th grade and up, I used to go to exercise class there. And this guy, always used to start the class with like, he's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so
Translate that.
would mean you have to watch over your body, I guess. You have to like be careful, like you have to maintain your body.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
It's a religious, like, it's like a religious...
It's supposed to be a religious thing where you're supposed to maintain your body well, which would correlate, which would translate to like watching over your eating habits, like having proper eating habits, and like being physically active to keep your body healthy. So it's technically supposed to be part of the culture.
They have in Yeshiva Gedola in Monroe, they have a workout class?
No.
Oh.
No. There's this guy that has like a fitness studio in Monroe. He's been having it there for a while. It has nothing to do with the issues.
Oh, okay, got it. So he starts this class by saying we should all keep in mind the dictum to preserve your health,
Right.
which is a religious dictum. I don't know what it is. It's not a law, is it? It's a mitzvah?
I don't know if it's. I honestly don't know.
It's some commandment.
Yes, it's definitely something that's in there, like that like you're supposed to like it's something that you're supposed to like do. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an actual like mitzvah, but it's something that like saying and davening. It's like it's there.
Yeah, it's an obligation that you should very much guard on your body, and it's understood to mean do all the actions in your power to maintain good health. And nowadays, that is understood to mean also exercising, which the medical consensus is that it helps towards preserving good health.
Right.
So he was essentially starting his class with like almost making it into a religious experience, or not a religious spiritual experience, but like you were doing a good deed by working out towards
Right.
towards guarding your body. Interesting. So when people come to you for personal training, do they usually have prior experience working out?
Most of the time, no.
No.
Yeah, most of the time they come with zero experience.
What is their concept of working out when they come to you?
For the most part, it's usually losing weight.
Losing weight?
Yeah.
What do they think losing weight takes?
They think it's supposed to be with some type of magical pill, and a lot of them think that will be through exercise.
And what do they think exercise is? Walking on a treadmill?
So no, usually the people that come are like past that point where it's like just walking on a treadmill. Like if they work out for themselves, most of these people are just go walking on a treadmill. They do come with the big concept of physical of strength training or like different stuff like that, not just treadmill, but they don't exactly know what it is usually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So where do you start?
It depends what the goal is, what where they come from, like what their physical capabilities are at the point where we start. It depends on a bunch of things, but it would go from anything from strength training to like teaching them how to use the core, or like literally I've done yoga with some people. So it really depends on what they want, what the goals are, and what they need.
You know, I had a really hard time coming to understand what the core is. Is it hard to explain to people?
The way I like to explain it is it's something like I usually say this. So it's called the LPHC. It's a lumbar-pelvic hip complex. It's a bunch of muscles that's basically it's a natural belt around the waist hip area, which is supposed to protect and stabilize the spine. And if that's usually active, once that's usually like working appropriately, then it will help translate strength from the lower to the upper extremities of the body. Mm-hmm. So that tends to be a very important thing to like learn how to use and how to engage. If you want to do like any serious strength training. or any type of training usually for that matter.
Yeah. It's so hard to like figure out how to activate it. You know, the
That's
meme of like what I think I look like when I plank and what I actually look like. It's very funny.
inverted, and they think they're
Yeah.
in like a straight position. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Also,
think I think there's a version of it with like a hippopotamus. I don't know. I'm gonna look at
no, there's like a saying that like every exercise I've done wrong enough is a lower body exercise, is a lower back exercise.
it's a lower back exercise. It's
So
not
in other
good.
words, like if your core is not active enough, then you'll usually put a lot of tension in your lower back, which is, well, that's not the reason most people have lower back pain. A lot of people have lower back pain. It's because their core is just not active, and they're in very sedentary positions all day, like either sitting, like usually only sitting all day and like not being very active. But yeah, the core is a key component to any type of physical fitness or just physical health.
So why do people usually come to you when they decide to come to you?
The people that usually come out of necessity is like because they have to lose weight for whatever reason. Either like, so the most common and funniest thing that I like people coming to me is like, I have my brother's wedding in 3 weeks and I need to lose 30 pounds by then. So I'm gonna start a diet of just lettuce and rice cake, and then I'm gonna go back to something normal. And usually after 3 days, they went to a Wachnacht or something, or a bunch of cake, and the whole thing is like they're back to square one. But
Oh
yeah,
no.
that's a very common thing. I'll people usually start, or people will come for like there's a bunch of different reasons. So it'll be like either keeping their blood pressure in check. I have this guy that I don't know if like he had like a heart surgery and he needs to do consistent cardio to keep his heart healthy. There's a bunch of random different reasons, but the most common would be one way or another for like weight loss purposes.
What else? I want to hear other things.
Let's see. So, like, I have this guy that's supposed, like, he was really supposed to go to physical therapy, but he's never like had any good experiences with physical therapy. So we were like in touch with his physical therapist, and I would like he'd send me like the plan. Like this guy has some type of it's a little bit complicated to explain what his condition is, but bottom line is he can't walk properly, and he needs to do a lot of physical therapy for like hip and core strength and like stability, like type of work. So like he has to work on stability on his lower, basically on his legs. So yeah, so that's pretty interesting. That's pretty different from what I usually do with most people. I do have a few people that I actually coach online, that I actually coach them for powerlifting. But yeah, that's not very common.
Are people coming because their wives are sending them?
Yeah, most of them. Not most of them. A significant portion of the ones that come for weight loss is because they're wives. I say like most people that like contact me, it's the wives contact me about their husbands contacting me.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Are the husbands dragging themselves halfway against their will?
Sometimes, yeah.
And what do you do if someone shows up to work out, not quite so excited about working out?
I can try to make it exciting to the extent of like trying to find what would interest them when it comes to like physical training, but it's, as I say, I'm not their babysitter, so I can't really like force them to do something they don't want. So I do whatever I can with those people, and whatever is done is better than nothing, I guess.
You know, it seems to me that women in the Hasidic community are in better shape. Maybe I'm going to get roasted for this.
It might be true, but it might also come out of necessity.
Like what?
Like having
So many
bunch of
kids.
Yeah.
And also running a house and not sitting in front of a computer. The men are working. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I don't have anything anecdotal towards that, like seeing like that women aren't necessarily more in shape than men, but that would definitely make sense in a way.
It seems to me from being on the women's side of the aisle that the women are very into physical health. You go walking, you do in someone's dining room, you do like yoga or something, Zumba.
It's definitely more of a common thing, and it's been there for way longer, probably from the women's like side, like on the women's side in the Hasidic world than the men's side. But then again, a lot of it also comes from like probably not the best place either, like the fitness fads where they do the juice diets or the I don't even know, like the fruit bowls, and like it's a style thing where it come and go for the most part. Again, the fact that it's overall like probably more common there is still better than it not being. Like it used to be, at least on the men's side, or still relatively is. But it's at least it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This actually brings back memories for me of Start Fresh, which was this like diet organization that came to Monroe when I was a teenager, and we would go weigh ourselves in once a week, and then we would all sit together and hear a lecture by a woman who screamed at us never to eat the chicken skin.
What?
And I don't know, we weren't allowed to eat the chicken skin. To this day, when I look at chicken skin, I think of that.
Okay.
But whatever it was, that was the moment for no chicken skin. But it was definitely normal for women to attend a diet program. I don't think there was an equivalent for men.
No. And again, those programs probably are not like from the most healthiest perspective either. It's about they don't care. Like the men can look however they want. I mean, at least physically, and the women have to be like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but like they're supposed to be like almost undernourished to an extent. They're supposed to be a size 2 or 4. I don't know how these sizes work, but I like hear the numbers thrown around. Like they're supposed to be like crazy skinny, and it's not necessarily out of a health perspective.
They're supposed to, by whose orders?
I don't think it's an order. It's not an order thing. It's not a hierarchical thing, but it's like an unsaid thing in a way.
Yeah, it's a social pressure.
Again, I think it's not like something specifically told me, but especially I see it in the Williamsburg culture for sure. Like I don't think it's such a common thing. Even in Monroe, probably not as much as in like Williamsburg, but it's like it goes along with like the brand name, like running after brand names and stuff like that. It's also like, oh, I weigh less, or I'm thinner, or whatever. Seems to, again, it's like nothing that I've personally seen or experienced, but like that seems to be the thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's very insightful. I think there's a lot of social pressure that women usually put on each other. That was my experience. Women notice you put on 3 pounds,
Right.
they notice on each other.
That creates a lot of fertility issues, being underweight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, being under a certain percent of body fat for women is very, very, very. Well, it's not good. Like it really affects negatively, like fertility.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it doesn't seem to be a problem generally in the community, but I hear what you're
We have
saying.
organizations for it, but I like helping with. Yeah.
Yeah. It is very interesting. Men also have an interesting food culture in the Hasidic community that I'm not sure that women have.
The
Like
kegel,
the kiggle and the chala. Like
right.
when do men like what happens for men? When do they have these like foods laid before them? This like almost soul foods that are not very dietetic, to use that term.
At every opportunity that's given or found, it can be. I don't know. Well, first of all, there's Lyle Shishi. That would be every Thursday night for some reason.
What happens Thursday nights?
So people, it's like the end of the week. I mean, I don't think there's actually anything behind it. It just somehow like became integrated. Like it became integrated into the culture. I think it's mostly over the last few years, where it's like the end of the week and people just go out. Like they go buy food, and what do they buy? Cholent, kegel, yapchik.
Yeah.
Traditional, boating food.
And then there's a Wachtnacht. Like,
And then there's all the simchas, like every week, like a Wachtnacht, the Siyam, Wachtnacht, brisk, I don't know, like Pidina Benz, and especially with like big families, there's for sure, like everyone can have anything like 2 or 3 nights a week. And then you have someone making a Siyam, then you have the office celebrating something, so there's going to be food in the office kitchen. Well, it's there anyways. And so on and so forth. So there's like always an abundance of extra food that's not needed.
and it's very like heavy foods, like cholent is beans and
Drenched in oil. Which, I mean, the drenched in oil part is not actually that healthy. But if you think about a lot of these things in and of itself is not necessarily that unhealthy as much as it's just an abundance. And those people don't move. Which is why a lot of them tend to like dang and not be overweight.
Is there an effort to change the lifestyle to make it less tempting to eat all the time?
Probably not. Like from the food perspective, it's probably just becoming more and more tempting. Like with all these new ideas that people come out. Well, the last few years it's been the meat boards, and then it's like the fish boards, and like, which again, if you think about it in and of itself, it's not necessarily that unhealthy. But it's at least it like what's come with it is like the vitalization of the concept of fitness. Like people are actually aware, like more people are actually aware of the concept of trying to be physically active or like just the concept of being healthy. So like even if they would have the option of eating those things, they try to stay away from it more, not have it as frequently and like have their times of it, but then also be aware not to have them all the time.
Yeah, I see both. I see the awareness of health and fitness and also fresh culture. Fresh is when you're like eating like with excess, and there's all of these ads around the meat boards that have all sorts of cold cuts on them, and like eating with like full relish to the point of some of the ads, it looks like this person is going to have a heart attack based on how much he's eating in the ad. And there's like this branding of food on a whole other level than it used to be in the past, and that's being driven by the food companies.
Yeah. So well, yeah. So that's probably not going to calm down anytime soon. But at least you have the workout culture coming with it.
So are men whose lifestyles are very busy, married men essentially usually go to the office and they daven in the morning and they daven at night. Where do they make time to work out?
So so first of all, I actually have quite a few office groups. So like where I actually like go down and send them with my trainers to offices and they like train over there. Or it would be early mornings or late nights, like after they're done or before they start the day.
So like what, you start your day, you pray, and then you work out?
Well, it's either that or before that. So it would be any time before they go to work.
So it's like maybe 6 a.m.
Yeah, and that's for people that have regular 9 to 5s, which in the Hasidic community, a lot of people don't. They have like either they're like their own bosses, they have their own thing going. They have their own schedule, so some of them will actually come like in the middle of the day. Or there's a bunch of like for at least the regular 9 to 5 people, it would be either early mornings or late nights.
Are there people who have like religious restrictions on what they can do in a workout?
Not that I can remember that I've personally encountered.
No, people are not like, I don't know, squats are against against the Torah.
No, I've
Biceps.
never. No. Well,
No.
there is the thing where people would be like, there's also, I don't remember, I remember learning it in Gemara at some point, but there is this thing about worshiping your body that you're not allowed to worship your body. But if I remember correctly, it's pretty vague to what extent that refers to. I don't know like what exactly that means, but I've never had it. Like I've had like Rosh Hashivas, I've had like people, like respected people, like in the community that I've worked out with me, and I've never had they've never had a problem with anything as long as it's in practice.
Really, my question was about like this position is too immodest. I don't want to do this workout, but I guess that would.
No, I mean, as long as it's for the right reason, then it's not actually immodest. I guess that's not an issue.
Uh-huh. But women do have such restrictions sometimes.
I can imagine. I wouldn't know that. Meaning I wouldn't know the experience of having encountered anything of that. I mean, I can understand that. I can see that being a thing, but I haven't encountered, for that matter, I haven't heard anything from my female trainers about that.
Uh-huh. I'm asking him, what's coming to mind now for me is the whole Zumba story. When Zumba became a thing,
Okay.
there was a pushback against women doing Zumba because it was considered like almost like Latin dance. It was inappropriate.
I mean, wait, how long ago was that?
Probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yes, that was before I was actually into it, even like understood it. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the guy that I used to go on Monroe used to get a pushback when he started this class. So, I mean, anything that's going to enter the culture from like it's something that people are not used to is going to be looked at as inappropriate if it is or it isn't.
Yeah.
So
anything that's new.
Especially when it comes to like working out with women, which is, I guess, yeah.
How do you handle it if you push against something new? Does that ever happen that you feel you're pushing against something new?
No, I've never had that. Because, I mean, again, considering like Muncie, like if I would have done it in Monroe, I'd probably. So I have a friend that I helped him actually get a certification, and he started his own studio also in Monroe. And I believe he had some pushback. I don't want to like say anything like that's not accurate, but I believe he had to like for a while stop having female trainers in Monroe. I know he had some pushback. I don't know exactly like what exactly, but I know he's had some pushback. But in Muncie, like there's not really a collective body who is going to be able to give pushback in a way. I mean, if I would have kids in a school system, like in a system, or then maybe I would be able to get pushback for certain things, but I don't think it's as prevalent as it would be in like a place like Monroe or like Williamsburg, even.
To explain what you're saying is if you had children that were in a Hasidic school, the school could give you
Then
pressure.
there's a way for try to give me pushback. But yeah, I haven't even had like anyone. I mean, as a matter of fact, I've been in touch with like the Satmar and Muncie Havosner about things like things that I do, if it's okay or not, if it'd be okay doing it. And he's never like told me anything like to not do, like he's told me to do things, like especially before I was married and when I was like hiring female trainees, they told me how to do it. So it'd be looked on as appropriate in the community. But I haven't really gotten any pushback from him or anyone else for that matter.
And for the record, you don't have kids at all. So yeah. Very interesting. What motivated you to go to Satmar?
I was always he's a very nice guy, and it is, at the end of the day, like I'd say like 80 to 90% of the people that I train are, well, not necessarily Satmar, but still like from that like very religious place. So if anyone has any questions at any time, it would be for me to be able to say that like I spoke to this guy and he told me this is okay. And yeah, so it probably comes down to that.
Right, very smart. With regards to workout culture, I think a big piece of Hasidische physical fitness culture is swimming. What's your experience around swimming?
So I'm personally not the best swimmer, but yeah, that's definitely something that's been way more prevalent and way more frequent in the community. I would say it seems like that's something that people have been doing for a long time.
What was your experience with swimming growing up?
I went to I never went swimming much. Like I never swam much. I was never the best swimmer. But yeah, we went like in school. We went in the summer. We went like twice a week. We went swimming.
What did you do in the pool when you went swimming with your school?
Oh, I swam, but like I can swim, but like it's not like I was very good at it. But we would play around, we would swim around. Nothing. It wasn't like purposeful, like for exercise. It's not like I did like 30 laps in the pool or something. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was being more active than anything else.
But it's not like you're in a swim team and you're competing when you go with your chaydik.
No.
No, you go with your class just to splash around in the pool and have fun.
Right.
And it's boys only.
It wasn't like correlated. It was like a summer activity. It wasn't like a physical. It wasn't like looked at as like a physical activity.
And no one formally taught you how to swim, right?
My mother actually did send me to lessons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I actually did go like for swimming lessons, but I swam so little. Like I didn't swim so much. So like I never like stuck. I do know how to swim, but it's not like I am like a good swimmer. So like I can swim, but it's like what I was supposed to be taught, that was what I was supposed to be taught never actually stuck to that extent.
Got it.
Yeah.
So since we've looped back around to your childhood, let's talk a little bit more about it. Would you say you had a childhood that was physically active?
Relative to where, like to the Hasidic community, probably not to the outside world, no. So I grew up in Muncie, New York, and I was in Satmar as a kid, and there's like really not much physical education there. It comes down to playing like catch. That's the extent of the physical activity we had access to.
Did you not have gym at all?
No.
Let's talk a little bit more about what you learned in your education system, so we get a sense of where you come from. Satmar is Hasidic, obviously. So what did you learn? You went from grade like pre-K?
So I honestly have trouble like correlating the grades to like the way it works with kittas.
Yes.
I'm confused with those. But it's probably from like pre-K to like, I think it's 8th grade.
Your education didn't end at 8th grade though, did it?
Secular education, yes.
Secular education.
Yeah.
And then you went on?
Then we go to Yeshiva Tana, which is probably 9th through 11th. And then it's Yeshiva Gedola. The regular time frame is around 3 years. But at that point, most people get married.
And then when you say that your phys ed was essentially playing catch, that was recess time, right? It was recess
Yeah,
play?
yeah. There was no actual physical education.
There's no gym. There's like,
No, no, no.
where did you get your physical release as a very physically energetic person?
Well, it was like very random things. Like it wasn't like specific activities. I never played ball. I never played any sports for the most part. I tried playing a little bit of baseball when I was like 13 or 14, but I was never actually able to play since like I didn't have like much people home to play and you need like a full team for that. But I just used to be very physically active outside. I was always outdoors. I used to climb trees, try to build stuff. But yeah, that's the extent of it for the most part.
When you look back, do you think you got like enough physical activity, or did you have you felt like you feel like you had your release? I'm just curious, and I'll tell you where I'm going with this question. I get a lot of comments from people who come on my tours who say the kids in this community seem like they're physically active. You know, they're not like pudgy.
So once they come home from school, I was thinking like of answering that. Like when I was in school, there's first you have the hour, like an hour of lunch where we play like catch a flag and galochan and stuff like that, which is like it's physically active. It's being physically active. But then
Well,
you have
wait, galucham. Remind me what galucham is.
So it's like yeah, like there's this one guy that is the galach, and like you're like start at one side and you have to run across the other side and not let that guy tap you, and whoever he taps becomes like a helper or something, and then that's up to the last kid. I don't even remember exactly how it goes, but that's the idea of it.
It's such
Yeah,
an interesting name for a game. Galucham is like a priest, right?
a galach is a priest. Yeah, I don't understand what's behind it, but that's yeah, that's what it
Wow.
was.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
So we had that. We had melech, which is the sticks. Like you have to like jump over the sticks.
Melech means king.
Well, and that's about it. And that was the extent of physical activity, which again was good. But then you have like 8 hours of pent up energy, and then the more you progress, like the older you get, it becomes like longer days, and then at some point the physical activity stops. Like once you're like past eighth grade, you have lunchtime yeshiva katana, like which again is like 9th through 11th or 12th, something like that. So you have like free time for yourself, but you really don't like you just walk around, schmooze, eat. You really don't do much. Then especially in yeshiva katana or yeshiva gedolah, you're like at school from like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to like 8 o'clock at night with no like no physical like activity or like any type of like energy expenditure throughout the day. So that's where you can become pretty pent up.
Yeah, it can get really hard. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, the younger kids for sure have more like again like even if they wouldn't do anything in school, they come home at like 4 or 5 o'clock, and then usually once they're at home, like nowadays it's probably I mean still in like in the Hasidic community there's not as much probably technology exposure, so like they're still probably more physically active like outdoors, but definitely more than when you get older than like they just from between 12, 13 to like 18.
Speaking of technology, something I think people are going to be asking about is how you had Google to be able to print your worksheets when you started to go to Refuah or wherever you went. Was it Refuah? The health
Yes.
center where you worked out
Well, center in Twin, like in Spring Valley.
in Spring Valley.
I'm honestly like when I was saying it earlier, I was trying to remember where I actually downloaded it from. I did have some access here and there through either my mother's or father's like phones or computers. Very limited though. I was 16 or 15 at the time. But then once I was like, I think once I turned, not when I turned 18, but like when I was 18, I think I got my first phone. I honestly don't remember exactly. I had what was it? A PS Vita. It's a Sony like gaming system.
Oh,
And I wasn't like I figured out some like Wi-Fi password of some place next to my house, and yeah, I think that's how I dealt. Like that's how like I figured out like my first bit of information. I guess that's how I used to start. Like yeah,
can I ask how old you are now?
25.
Cool. What would you say your hope is for you to like in your work, besides for obviously building a business and personal training, which you're doing?
Like from the perspective of awareness, like of physical fitness in the Heimish community.
What are you doing to that end? Yeah, go on.
It's not, there's like nothing that I'm like, that I can do like on like a big level, like proactive to like get people to do things. But I guess individually, I try to like make people understand the concept of like how you can actually be like proactive and like looking at exercise for more than just weight loss or feeling better, and like actual like be proactive with it and use it as a way to like improve like your living like your well your
Quality of
overall,
life.
yes, your quality of life, like how to improve quality of life. But yeah, but that's the biggest extent that I can like. I'm like I can do interviews, I can do a bunch of things that like can help people understand it more. But it's gonna come down to people willing to look at it more for more than just trying to lose the 15-20 pounds for the next Simcha, or like doing it because your wife forced you to do it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, to that end, if people want to find you, where do they find you? Like, if they want to learn from you or train with you?
For the most part, it's word of mouth. Where I've like had my flow of clientele, I have tried to do marketing. I guess it comes down to having to do more consistent marketing, which I'm really not that good with. Like I would advertise in like the local magazine sometimes, do some video ads for like WhatsApp statuses and groups, but I usually don't get the best quality clients through those. Meaning like they usually don't stick around for too long. It comes down to word of mouth for the most part.
Anything else I should have asked you, you think?
The only thing I can think of is of my personal thing in fitness. I don't know.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, talk about your own training and competing.
So at some point, so when I started working out, like in the first 2-3 years, I used to jump from like program to program for like 2-3 months or so, and then like find the next thing. So at some point when I was, I think, in Yeshiva Gedola, that's, I don't know, let's say 12th grade, I came across a YouTube video of some guy talking about something called a 5x5, like a training block of 5x5. Whereas like you do 5 sets of 5 reps of a compound movement, which is usually a multi-joint movement, something like a squat or deadlift, or like even a shoulder press. And I found something that's called, I think, 5x5 Wendlers, like an app. And I started doing that. At that time, I didn't know that it's like it's a very like sport specific thing. So the 5x5 workouts like that are based around 3 main compound lifts, which is the squat, bench, and deadlift. I started doing that. I started building those numbers, like my numbers on those 3 lifts. I started posting them, and from 5x5, I went to like a few different programs. There's like the 5-3-1, which is a bunch of different setups of like how the frequency and like volume of workouts are like done. And then some guy, so a Hamish guy from Queens, who I became very close friends with, reached out to me, asking me if he can coach me for like powerlifting. Which at that point I already like knew what powerlifting was. I was aware of it, and like I followed the sport to some extent, like the biggest names in it. And he asked me if he can coach me, and he started coaching me with an actual like structured program. That was probably around 3 to 4 years ago. And then I did my first competition in Sickas in Atlantic City.
What did you compete on?
So we did a powerlifting. It's a powerlifting meet where you you have to like do the 3 compound lifts. And it's like you have to do squat, bench, and deadlift. You get 3 attempts for each lift. So you usually start with something very light, like relatively light, something you know you're confident that you can do. Then a second attempt that's kind of pushing it, and then a third attempt where you would like to ideally like push past what your like personal best lift is. It's divided obviously. First male and female, like men and women, have different groups, and then there's like weight classes. So I compete in the 100-kilo weight class, which usually these competitions are actually done on weekends. So bigger competitions would be done on like over 2 days. So like Shabbos and Sunday. Shabbos would be like the women would lift on Shabbos, and like some of the lighter weight classes of the men. And since I'm one of the heavier weight classes, I usually don't have an issue with like running into an issue of competing on Shabbos. So I end up usually competing on Sundays in bigger competitions. Otherwise, it's actually like a big issue because most competitions end up being like one-day competitions end up being in Shabbos, so I can't compete by a lot of it. It was Cholamoid Sikas, and it was the Erev the Zweite Take. So
It was on the eve of the second part.
right.
Yeah.
of like the 2 second light. Yeah. So I had to like ditch the competition in the middle.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was in Atlantic City. It's a 2.5, I think it's like a 2.5 hour drive from there to Muncie. So I had to ditch before deadlifts, which basically mean that it's called dropping out of the meet. So, yes, I didn't actually like total a number, which would be getting at least one of each lift, one of squat, deadlift, squat, bench, and deadlift.
Wait, were you upset?
Yeah, but it was still exciting to have like had the first experience of doing it. So it was pretty cool to like actually see, like be able to like put the work that I've put in for so long like on stage. So even if I wasn't too upset about it. The next competition that I did was I think it was June, July, somewhere around there. Like around a half year after that in 2023. I did New York State Championships. That was in Albany. I won second place in my weight class.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yeah, and since then I've done 2 more competitions. One was Northeast Regionals, so that is basically all the Northeast states. That would be like Maine, all the way up, like from Maine down to basically New York. That was also in Albany. I was injured at that competition because 2 months before that, I was actually by like the IPF World Championships that was in Malta. And that's like a small island country that's like south from Italy, I think. And I wasn't feeling that well. I was pretty dehydrated, and I tried lifting something that I wasn't supposed to be lifting, and I kept on attempting it like 4, 5, 6 times till I strained my lat, basically the upper side of my back. And yeah, but I still ended up. I think there was like 8 or like 900 competitors at Northeast Regionals. But either way, I still won 5th.
Wow. Out of 800, 900 competitors?
Yeah, but again, so it's divided up into weight classes.
Into
So
weight classes. I get it.
my weight class was like probably around 30, 40 people, which is still pretty decent considering that it tends to be a little bit of a higher caliber. Like it's like there's like the local level and the state level, then like the regional level, and then the national level. So that's like one level before like national, which tends to be a bunch of decent lifters. So that's still, I guess that's still pretty decent. But yeah, and the last one that I competed was actually in Brooklyn, and right next to Bar Park. There was like I did that 3 months ago.
How did that go?
That went pretty well. Since I injured myself in Malta, which is at this point around close to 2 years ago, I have a habit of like not thinking when, like the only time I don't think when it comes to training is when I train myself. So I end up doing a lot of stupid things, and it's just not letting me progress sometimes. So I'd call it like finishing, like completely rehabbing what I injured myself then. And I just went very light at this competition just to see how I was doing. And that went pretty well. Still did 3rd place. I could have probably easily done more, but I went way below what my actual like numbers would allow me to do, just so to see where I'm at. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was probably actually the first meet where I made the first competition where I actually made all 9 lifts, so 3 of each, and I was actually able to successfully complete all of them.
That's nice.
But yeah, and the next one I'm planning on doing is probably Northeast Regionals 2025, which is going to be in September.
Are you training for it already or not yet?
Yeah. So I'm not doing, so meet prep would usually be anywhere between 9 to 12 weeks of training before that. Now I'm just trying to stay healthy and eat enough food, drink enough water to be able to build strength. And so I have to stay at around 220 pounds. Right now I'm probably sitting at around 230. Well, ideally I would want to like lose the weight, like be actually less than that so I can eat into the competition. That would usually help me with leverage just to be able to lift more. But if I would try to lose weight now, I'm really opening myself up to being prone to injuring myself very easily. With I would tend to be like more dehydrated and like malnourished for the workouts that I have to do. Within the 9 to 12 weeks before that is where I do a very, very slow calorie deficit to very slowly like try to lose that weight. And probably at the end, like right before the competition, do a small water cut to get under 220, and then like replenish into the meat.
Why don't you just eat lettuce and rice cake for 2 weeks?
Because then I'd injure myself and not be able to lift.
I'm kidding.
I know. It's like it's like people don't realize that like doing stuff like that, and it will probably make you lose weight, but it will also make you lose like muscle mass. Like it will.
Yeah.
It will make you lose body fat, but it will make you lose everything else as well.
Yeah. And then it'll come back even worse also.
And not only that, you make yourself more prone to things like to chronic diseases. Like if you carry a low amount of muscle mass, that in itself can make you prone to type 2 diabetes, and it's not just being overweight with too much fat tissue.
This is my last question that I can't help but bring up. You're very knowledgeable about biology, about the body, about how we work, and you went to Satmar for up to Yeshiva Gedola, which is we've mentioned all of these different segments of education in the Hasidic community, in the Satmar Hasidic community. You've really been educated in this system with very little secular training and assuming no formal biology training, right?
No. Well,
So,
up to the I taught myself, obviously.
okay, do you feel like your Satmar education held you back?
I think it's like people think of it as a very simple question. I think it's way more complex than just looking at what I was offered or not. I've exposed myself to a culture where I know a lot of non-Jews and a lot of people like that I work with in my field that obviously don't come from the same background that I do. And I can say that despite not having the access to it, it's either despite, because of that pushed me to make myself more knowledgeable in what I do. Compared to if I would have been in a system where I would have been taught things, quote unquote, appropriately, I don't know if I'd have that same drive. Because again, you see how the public school system looks, and I obviously am not saying from first-hand experience, but from what you see in the news and stuff, a lot of kids are undertaught. And I don't know. I don't like going into things that I don't know that well, but I don't think this is a very simple. I think it's way more complex than people would like to think it is. I mean, again, obviously it's very simple that the education offered could be way more etiquette. It could be on way better standards. In my opinion, probably without interfering with what would be considered against religious Judaism. But I don't think that it's still as simple as it is.
Yeah, you feel like, I think you're saying that having a certain deficit by having been educated in Satmar has motivated you to make up for it in a very ambitious way. And also you're very intelligent.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to probably.
Yeah, I hear that.
That shouldn't be the way to go about it. Okay, let's give him a deficit and let's not teach him anything. So by the time he grows up and knows nothing, he should be very motivated to teach him. That sounds very ridiculous probably, but I guess the system is there, and for what it's worth this is an advantage that you can have out of it probably.
Yeah. Would you say you're critical of the system?
To an extent, probably.
To an extent, which is typical, no?
It's not like a partisan type. It's not like either this team or that team. It's a bunch of both, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That was a very good answer, I think. It is very complicated. There's no perfect solution, but your example is a very interesting study in how self-education can come from. You were still able to successfully self-educate yourself, which is very interesting.
Right. Which again is especially in the Satmar community, is probably not a very common thing. But again, on the other hand, you see people self-educating themselves in a bunch of different aspects, and it doesn't have to be in a traditional manner of actually studying, in my case, human anatomy or something similar.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of successful people in business, and on the other hand, obviously, there's a bunch of people struggling because of that. So, and then as well, you see people struggling that were in the system too, even more than that. And they don't have, in a way, the safety net that our community has in a certain way.
And it's also about learning style. Some people are very good at self-teaching, and other people are not able to learn that way. They need a structure. So, yeah, that has a lot to do with it. When I hear Hasidic men complain about having deficits because of where they come from, I think that is very legitimate, even while I see your example to be very interesting because you've clearly...
I used to be very frustrated, actually. Specifically when I studied NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, I remember studying how the heart works, and you really need to understand algebra for that. And that really used to frustrate me because I don't know algebra. I don't know how. So, and that frustrates me because stuff that I honestly, I don't understand it completely now. It's I would have understood it probably way better than I do now if I would have known algebra. But then again, if I would have been in the place where I would have studied that, who knows if I would have tried to if this would interest me at all. So it's what if, could have. I mean, it's also not a lot of code, because like there's possibility for change, but it's not as simple as of like if they'd improve to a crazy extent that would actually improve on that would have improved certain people's situations. I'm not so sure about that.
I hear you.
And so, again, in certain cases, obviously it would. But in a whole, I don't know if like the solution is a complete overturn of how they do things. There's definitely room for improvement to some extent, for sure. That's unquestionable. There's definitely more to math than just teaching the 10 times table.
Yeah.
But
which is what you learned.
Probably, maybe even not, whatever. Like that's probably the extent where they would, where they would teach it, or even like what they teach now, and just make sure that it's actually enforced and like take it seriously. Even that would probably be a huge improvement. Anything majorly more than that, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if it would like actually like help improve, like in a whole the community or not, like towards like a better financial life, or like anything for that matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I really, really appreciate you have a very nuanced take, which I actually relate to a lot, and I very much appreciate that. And I appreciate you sharing everything you just shared. And I wish you a lot of luck with your next meet, which I'm sure will go great. I'm gonna link your Instagram handle because I don't know what else I can link. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm
okay.
My WhatsApp number, but that's about it.
Okay, we'll put your WhatsApp number in case people who want to be long-term clients, not flakes who don't want to really work out, want to contact you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Shmilly. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And also thank you to the viewers on YouTube and the podcast listeners as well. Bye-bye.